For all you Cowboys fans out there that just watched this atrocity that happened last night, I think it's time to have the really tough conversation that nobody else is talking about in the media right now for a good reason. And before I say this, I want everyone to understand exactly what I'm saying. Okay? Because I'm a firm believer in like energy and karma, and I'm saying this the most respectful way possible. Jerry Jones is 81 years old. He is the only owner in the NFL, maybe in sports, period, that is in full control of the football roster operations of his team. He is fully hands-on. He will not relinquish power to anyone else to make decisions for this football team. And you guys have changed coaches. You guys have fired multiple coaches. You've drafted well. You've traded players. You've signed guys. They have done everything by the book, technically. They have tons of all pros all over that team. Tons of all pros. The only thing that's been the same the whole time is Jerry Jones. And the tough conversation that needs to happen is I think it's time to accept, and I mean this respectfully, I hope Jerry Jones lives a long, happy, healthy life. I hope he's surrounded by family and the people he loves. I hope he accomplishes all the things that he wants to accomplish and he stays healthy. But I think it's time to accept that the Dallas Cowboys might not ever win a Super Bowl or get far enough in the playoffs to even sniff one until Jerry Jones respectfully passes. And I don't see people in the media talking about this because it's kind of a tough subject, and I understand that. But I think it's a tough conversation that kind of needs to be brought up. If you're a Cowboys fan right now, I think you just need to kind of accept that. And I hope he lives another 30 years, but he's 81 years old and he's still running this team. I don't think he will ever retire. I don't think he'll ever stop. He's going to do this until he respectfully passes. I don't think he'll ever stop. And that being the case, and that being the one thing that is constant through these last like 30 years that they haven't made it to a Super Bowl, I don't think they'll ever sniff any kind of big accomplishments until he's gone. Which brings up, and I'll get into the other things about this game and the Dallas Cowboys team that I think also needs to change based on yesterday's performance, because there's some other things that need to happen. But one more thing I want to look up. When Jerry Jones does pass, who is the heir to the Cowboys throne? Who is going to take over the team? That is a big question to start thinking about. Sure, we'll say when Jerry Jones retires. Let's see who's going to control it. It looks like it will be his son, Stephen Jones. That's what I'm seeing. So based on this article that I don't know is factual or not, but it says that when Jerry Jones does finally retire, that he will hand it down to Stephen Jones, his son, who has been the chief operating officer for years. And you can make an argument that he is doing a better job at the GM position than his father. So he looks like the one that will be taking over, his son, Stephen Jones. And I don't know anything about him. Maybe he'll be a great heir to the throne. Maybe he'll do a great job running the team, but you might have better hope and better luck with him than his father, because his father does not want to relinquish any power with his Cowboys team. And it's a tough conversation to have, but I think it's fair to say you're probably not going to see any success until that happens. And the bottom line is, my next point I want to make is, if Mike McCarthy still has a job by the end of this week, you absolutely have no hope of doing well ever. There's not even a glimmer of hope. Mike McCarthy needs to be fired for this. And I'm not a Cowboys fan, obviously, and I don't obviously know everything about coaching, but I do know this. If there's anything that's the responsibility of the coach, it's to have your guys fully prepared, ready, and on the same page at the competitive level. So when they start playing, there's no question marks. Everyone knows what the game plan is. Everyone is well prepared for what they're trying to do. Now, you might lose in that instance, and you might get surprised by some things that the other team does. That's going to happen. You might get out-coached. But from the very first offensive possession that the Dallas Cowboys had, they looked like they were not even on the same page. It looked like Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. It looked like this was their first time ever playing together. You saw them bitching at each other on the field in the huddle. You saw them bitching at each other on the sideline like they didn't know what was going on. There was a miscommunication there. And these are the things that have to be worked out before the game. Like, if you're coming out and you're off first offensive possession and guys look like they're not on the same page, that's coaching. You can't put that on the players. That's the kind of shit that you need to spot out during that week in practice and have it figured out before they ever touch the field. I've never seen a team look so disorganized and look so not prepared for this game than the Cowboys did. They blew them out of the water. These stats down here do not tell the story. If you were to just look at this game and you didn't watch it, and you were just looking at these stats, Dak Prescott, 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. CeeDee Lamb had 9 receptions for 110 yards. Tony Pollard had 15 for 56 and a touchdown. You might look at this and be like, oh, it was a shootout. They just didn't win it in the end, even though it wasn't all that close in the end. But anyone that watches the game knows that this was never close. People were leaving the stadium at halftime. It was 27-0 at one point, and it got down to a 32-point lead at one point as well, I think in the third quarter, maybe even the fourth. That's unacceptable. Mike McCarthy absolutely should lose his job for that. That's insane. You cannot be that unprepared for a team. That's totally preparation. The players, and we'll get to the players next. But in my opinion, from what I saw, that looked like a lack of organization, a lack of leadership, and a lack of preparation on the basis of the coaches. Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. This Cowboys team was supposed to be the best defense in the NFL. And for a while, I have to say, it did look like they were that in the regular season, of course, which is when they always look good. They were getting pick sixes. They would get scoops and scores, forcing fumbles, forcing interceptions. The defense looked insanely good all year. And then once again, they get to the playoffs, and it's like, who is this team? And I don't think, here's the thing, I don't think Dan Quinn quite deserves to be fired yet. I think they should watch this Green Bay Packers team through the playoffs and see how Jordan Love continues to play. And if Jordan Love continues to go out and dominate all these teams and gets to the NFC Championship game and looks like a world beater, maybe you cut Dan Quinn some slack, because I'm not sure how much of this was bad Cowboys and as much as it may have been good Packers offensively. Because I don't think there's enough footage on Jordan Love. I don't think there's enough game planning against him. I don't think anyone has really been ready to see Jordan Love play at this level. So there's a lack of preparation there, but that also might be because we haven't seen him play enough, and they probably underestimated him, because he looks like a top 5 guy in the league right now the way he's playing, maybe top 4. So maybe cut Dan Quinn a little bit of slack, and let's see how Jordan Love plays before you decide to pull the ripcord on him. And the Packers, by the way, they play like that. They can beat anybody. I don't think anyone was ready for Jordan Love to play at that level. I really don't. So I think Mike McCarthy has to go. Dan Quinn might get a second chance, and that's okay. Jerry Jones, you guys will probably not see success until he's passing down the team to someone else. And the next point and the final point that I think I want to make here about what the Dallas Cowboys could probably do, it might be full-blown rebuild time. And I know that's hard to say because they've had how many 11 and 12 win seasons. So it looks like in the regular season, the success is staggering. They're like, oh my gosh, we're winning 11 and 12 games every year. How can you make changes? We look great. We're winning most of our regular season games. We're unbelievable at home, right? But you can't go one and done in the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years with a 12-win or 11-win season. That can't happen. That tells me people are not prepared, and that tells me that the players themselves they aren't ready for this. They aren't set up. It's too big of a market. They can't handle the pressure, and you need to move on. So that being said, Dallas Cowboys, I think the only player that you should keep is CeeDee Lamb. Actually, 2 players. Keep Micah Parsons, keep CeeDee Lamb. And I think everyone else is movable, tradable, whatever. Draft a quarterback. Try to trade for someone. Everyone else is fair game. Rebuild around those 2. I really believe that's the next move. And Jerry Jones, again, he has to be the one to make that decision, which he probably won't, because he's so, and there's a positive quality to this, but he has faith in his players to a fault. And sometimes that's awesome because you love to see that for players getting their money, having someone stand by them after a bad game. That's great. But he will not pull the ripcord on guys very quick. It takes a lot. So he might not do that. But I think the toughest part of this conversation is, and you'll never hear anyone talk about it in the media because it's a tough conversation, because it sounds like you're wishing for something terrible to happen, and that's not what it is. I'm just saying, I think it's time for Cowboys fans to accept that you just might have to deal with this for another 20 years, and you might just have to deal with this until he passes the team on to someone else. And that's okay. I hope Jerry Jones lives a long, happy, healthy life. But this team is not going to go, because they've changed everything. What's something that Cowboys have not done yet to try to make changes? They've gone through how many coaches, and they drafted well. They did a great job in the draft. I felt like they've found a lot of great talented players and stuck with them and put together a great roster. On the roster, on paper, they look incredible. But something's got to change. And the only thing that hasn't changed is the ownership and the one that's really running the team. And I want to know too, of the losses that the Cowboys have suffered, I want to know of the Cowboys fans, if does this trump any of those losses? Because this has, in my opinion, if this was the team that I was a fan of, this would be the most heartbreaking loss, because they look like they didn't even show up to play. Like, they look like they had no shot of winning this game from the jump. Absolutely no shot. I mean, I think it's worse than the catch. I think it's worse than every Aaron Rodgers loss that they suffered. This Packers team has had their number in the playoffs for so long now. They can't beat them. This has to be the most painful one. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to read every single comment I get on here. It's 100% free content. If you guys can, the best way to support my content is to subscribe. It's 100% free. It'll always be 100% free. More football takes, more NFL content coming on the way. Let me know what you guys think. If you're a Cowboys fan, I'm sorry, but what do you guys think needs to change? Because I don't know if you can change anything else other than that. Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next one.